Hey guys, it's Kosi. While I was minding my own business playtesting some specs for a future video, Blizzard dropped a rework regarding a specialization I did play a lot during Season 3 of The War Within. And because Sub seemingly got some love, I thought it's only fair for me to take a good peek on Rogue in general. So today, we talk about all 3 Rogue specs in a most honest review for Midnight. And because we got plenty of classes to go for, let me know in the comments what you want to see next and if you enjoyed Rogue so far. Also, like and subscribe because I'm gonna drop some more of these in the future, and with a sub, you won't miss anything. A review of Warlock and Death Knight is already live, in case you're interested. Now then, it's fair to say that most of us talk about Rogue with mixed feelings. I never met anybody so far who enjoyed more than one of the available specs, since they all differ a lot from each other. And with that, I made it my personal mission to see what's up. With that, we start with the problem child right away. Subby Rogue is technically what you would envision a rogue to be. Sneaky stealth action, dancing around your opponent to stab the ever-living hell out of anyone in sight. Also, the easiest access to a lot of CC for all kinds of shenanigans. But what did change for Sub Rogue towards Midnight? And let me say this very briefly, a lot. Now, first and foremost, as mostly all of the specs reworks, it got easier to play. When I played it during the War Within, Sub had a lot of small cooldowns to manage, as well as 2 90-second cooldowns to your big load blowing. Now, you only have 1 90-second cooldown and 2 micro cooldowns to manage. Good news though, you most likely can just macro, Thistlety and Shadow Dance into one button when you start playing. We also lost Rupture as our damage over time application, and I mentioned Flagellation as well as Symbols of Death as our cooldowns. Though the most demanding change Sub Rogue gotta deal with for now is Find Weakness. Ever since it came to life, it was a debuff you put onto enemies in order to bypass their armor. Now it's a buff you put on yourself, and that means it's so much easier to keep track of. With this update, there's no setup or prior ramping, you just jump in and press pew pew buttons. Now again, as somebody who played this during the War Within, I do think it got nuked pretty heavily in their spells. However, I do also think that everybody who plays something on live as a main and compares it to Midnight thinks the same. It's no longer about timing your cooldowns and maxing out your damage with that. Here's the rotation for Sub in Midnight, at least with the current build. You start from Stealth, Shadow Strike in, Eviscerate to trigger the free Slice and Dice, because even though that's an active button, all 3 Rogue specs just apply that passively. And then you technically vanish to do the entire thing again, as entering Stealth does trigger a guaranteed max combo point attack. But even if you don't have Vanish, you just gather up the max combo points, and then before using your next spender, you use Shadow Blades and Shadow Dance, followed by Secret Technique. And that's all your setup. Now you just gain combo points with either Backstep or Shadow Strike, which is just Backstep from Stealth, and it's a lot more potent, to essentially spam the ever-living hell out of Eviscerate. But what about AoE, I hear you ask? Well, because of Trickster and Nimble Flurry, all of our single target spells will also hit up to 7 targets with splash damage. So technically it doesn't change, taking into consideration there's maybe a high HP or high value target to go down on. However, with the new clever combatant, even Shuriken Storm can trigger Unseen Blade, which was always the biggest issue about Sub in the War Within, meaning it's now actually useful. Now as you can see here, it's a pretty chill and easy access spec that doesn't require much brainpower anymore, while still finding all kinds of joy playing the sneaky stealth load. And if the goal of Blizzard was to make the specs easier accessible, I think they did a good job. Though I wish one could explain to me why they took down Flagellation but kept Gormor in the talent tree. I deadass haven't seen anyone play this dumpster talent in a long time. When it comes to the Apex talents though, Sub's Edition is actually one of the few ones that totally make sense. You see, nothing with these 3 talents trigger from any specific spells or abilities that you potentially don't have. Everything comes from a very passive called Shadow Techniques. It's pretty much more damage on top of more damage and on top of more combo points, and we like that.
Sneaky, sneaky.
Now moving forward, I want to talk about the beloved Assassination Rogue, or as I like to call it, ass. And what can I say? I do like me some good ass.
Naughty, naughty.
Anyways, I did play this one during the bot dungeon and I fell in love with how Assassination works right now. Very beautiful design spec that directly addresses a major issue Assassination had in PvE or specifically in Mythic Plus. The constant need to re-stealth during packs in order to multiply their dots to more than one enemy. And ladies and gentlemen, that is gone. And it's gone without breaking the dot fantasy of Assassination in any way, shape or form. Let me explain. The breakdown of this little nasty dot machine is having 2 dots with Garrett and Rupture plus your passively applied poison, obviously, but those 2 bleeds can only be applied to one target. So how can we spread it just as efficient as Riley Reid on the casting couch, you might ask? Well, here's the deal. Indiscriminate carnage is gone. No more re-stealth required. Instead, they simply reworked Crimson Tempest. Right now on live, this is an AoE finisher that needs combo points to just add another bleed to the list. In Midnight, Crimson Tempest is a combo point generator that automatically spreads your highest Rupture and Garrett on up to 2 targets. And that's it. That's the entire magic. And let me tell you, it feels so enjoyable to do that, because it also does AoE. If you can, start with Garrett from stealth, as you still get your 50% damage increase on it, 2 more combo points, and you silence the enemy if you have it talented. Though that's all the perks you get. You don't need stealth to multiply it. So it's not bad if you can re-stealth. But even if you don't go to stealth, go Garrett, Mutilate till at least 5 combo points and then Rupture. And then you can start a new Crimson Tempest to spread. Now, I'm not sure at what point you just want to spam Crimson Tempest over Mutilate, but when it comes to the combo point generation, Mutilate is still more efficient. And cheaper too. And while Kingsbane pretty much stays the same as a cooldown, that simply does some damage and increases in damage with every lethal poison application, Deathmark, your big cooldown, got changed up. During life right now, it duplicates all the bleeds and lethal poisons on the target, making it bleed out very quickly. During Midnight, this spell now simply buffs up the power of your bleeds by 100%. Now haters would say, this is pretty much the same, just less confusing, and that's pretty much it. They also added a little perk that you can duplicate your lethal poison procs onto the target, which makes it pretty lethal, get it? Combination with Kingsbane, as you probably remember, you want to apply as many poisons as possible during that window. So that combination, not too bad. Now, certain question I couldn't answer yet, as the damage meter is working, but there are no breakdowns yet. I don't know if using Fan of Knives is even remotely efficient. Like I said, I don't know if using Crimson Tempest is more efficient than Fan of Knives or Mutilate in AoE situations. Or at what point you just want to set Mutilate anyways, because it has the highest chance of stacking your combo points, and you kinda wanna do that for Envenom to trigger your Apex talent. Speaking of, hey guys, Future Kussy here. So I did a little bit more testing, and turns out that Fan of Knives will be the play if you are in AoE and if your bleeds are spread. Even though Mutilate does have a chance for up to 4 combo points with 1 cast of 50 energy, Fan of Knives almost guarantees 2 combo points per cast, and it's only 35 energy each. It's also just a lot more damage in AoE, and because you know for a fact that you can get a maximum of 2 combo points per use, you can never overcap either. Hope that helps. Your Apex talents are where it's at. When using Envenom, which is our main single target combo point spender for raw damage, you buff yourself with some enhanced energy regen that stacks up to 6 times for an overall of 80% increase. Insane! Furthermore, Kingsbane adds exactly 5 combo points to you whenever it's used, meaning you can just send an Envenom right away to start the energy rack. Now, all in all, I absolutely fell in love with this spec throughout the short time I was playing it. Easy access AoE bleeds that just kinda get confusing due to Blizzard's weird UI and nameplate changes. Easy access AoE bleed application due to Fan of Knives and Crimson Tempest. And then you just go to town on your favorite enemy while keeping an eye out for potentially reapplying your bleeds. Oh, and I'm not gonna talk about hero talents, as Fatebound is utterly stupid in design. I don't care if it's good or not. It's a shitty design for a hero talent, so Deathstalker is what the real ones play.
You boot-licking lick-spittle! I'll cut you up!
Moving on to the weird cousin of a spec that nobody really knows why it's part of the rogue class and not, I don't know, warriors? The gambling addicted Outlaw. Now, while, by lore, Stab and Assassination are sneaky stealth abusers to get themselves an advantage, Outlaw is just the loud and proud pirate who will drink and shout non-stop. But what about the gameplay though? Well, let's see. Instead of poisons or bleeds, you rock guns. Yeah. Inspired by Texans, you always have one finger on the trigger in order to get yourself the advantage by cheating? I don't know. So here's the kicker. I have not played Outlaw on live at all, so the comparison will fall flat a little bit here. Disregarding, I did give it a fair shot, and this is what I figured out. Roll the Bones is still the major micro cooldown that this entire party is designed around, granting you a random plethora of buffs to increase your raw output and enhance your gameplay. Well, that one got changed quite a bit. Instead of giving out random buffs that not even the tooltip tells you how many there are, you now have 4 stages of buffs, or 4 sets of dice if you want. Now don't get me wrong, using RTB is still random as hell, though you get some spells or circumstances that guarantee you a higher dice roll for more rewards. But again, random. Now from what I can tell, the buffs don't feel as impactful anymore compared to current life, but let's talk about the actual gameplay for a moment. Similar to all other rogue specs, you generate combo points and spend them to deal some decent damage. Though Outlaw is a lot more fast paced, I feel like. A lot of button mashing, you almost never feel energy starved due to a bunch of procs happening left, right and center, and you got a permanent cooldown reduction buff for most of your spells per combo point used, guaranteeing a very fast and fluent gameplay as long as you, well, play the game. Your main CP gainers are Sinister Strike and Pistol Shot, though you rarely use the latter one unless it procs. For spenders, you do sit on Dispatch and Between the Eyes. Now, Between the Eyes is something you want to keep on cooldown as much as you can. If it's up, use it. Dispatch is simply to spend your combo points if Between the Eyes isn't available. The Blade Flurry is pretty much your constant cleave damage, as it does have 30-second cooldown with a 10-second duration. But that's kinda clickbait, as the button itself already generates up to 5 combo points, while also getting its cooldown lowered by a second per combo point spent. So you have it non-stop. Now, I know this sounds confusing at first, but I like to mention the core idea is to spam any button in sight. So you can reduce the cooldown and spam it even more. And that part I really like. But what I heavily dislike is Roll the Bones. It's bullshit. It was never good, it was never reliable, it's always just gambling till you hit the right set of dices for the right situation. Not sure why they had to keep it in when they changed it to this version now, but whatever. It's one of those spells that I would really appreciate if it's just gone. But hey, that's just my personal opinion on it. Now again, I can't compare from live to now, though I can say that the spec itself is very fluent, you never have any downtime, you also got a cool grappling hook that gets you to targets quickly, and you got another big cooldown that I assume also gets reduced with combo point spending that would prolong your current Roll the Bones procs by 30 seconds. Meaning if you do hit the jackpot on 4 buffs, you can prolong that puppy by half a minute, in which you're gonna spend so many points that you most likely take half of his 6-minute cooldown off. Your Apex talents also seem quite fun and slightly alter your gameplay. It buffs Between the Eyes, which we use anyways, but also gives Dispatch a 12% chance per combo point used to hide a bullet. Now, some of you think that's code. But if you hide 6 of them, your next Between the Eyes will cost no energy, instantly gains 6 combo points and resets its own cooldown, meaning you can use it twice. Not too bad, as again, the required abilities to trigger this aren't bound to any talent points used, as you can simply use those regardless. Matter of fact, similar to Sub-Rogue, both of these finishes you have before even spending a talent point, and I personally think that's a very good thing for an Apex talent. Now unfortunately I tried Outlaw after Assassination, and I gotta be honest, after Assa it was very hard to impress me. However, needless to say, for the sake of pruning and reducing the buttons you need, or even the knowledge you need to get into specs, it's not that bad. I just personally don't like the Roll the Bones mechanic, which with Fatebound as a hero talent, yeah, I'ma just pass on that. However, because the other 2 specs are that good and that easy to start with, I can honestly recommend the Rogue in general. Especially Assassination is mind-blowingly fun. Even more so if you see your damage just stagnating at the same damage value, while everybody else just bursts, tops the charts, and then falls off rapidly to make room for you at the first place. Again, keep in mind, changes and damage adjustments will be subject to change due to the state of the game. With that being said, let me know which class you'd like to see next. Until I catch you in the next one, peace.